Hello and welcome to this Online College of Coding video tutorial series. This is the 10th video in the series of intermediate breaky blocks in GameMaker. In this video, we're going to be adding some polish to the way our game works by adding scoring and a visual effect. Before starting this video, it's recommended you've seen the previous videos in the series, as well as the Introduction to GameMaker videos and Intermediate Programming Concept videos. Open the brick object and select the create event. Open its execute code action and add the following lines of code. Because of the way that the GameMaker image index variable works, if we tell our sprite with 5 images to choose image number 7, the image index variable wraps around and we end up with image number 2. The reason we're using the number 7 is because it'll loop around and double the chance of choosing a normal brick instead of a power brick. To reduce the number of power bricks even further, if our first generated random number is 3 or 4, which corresponds to the power bricks, we generate another random number. Having so few power bricks makes them feel like much more of a reward for the player and also stops them from chain reacting like they do at the moment. Now you can close the code editor and close the brick object. Then hit the play button to test the game. As you can see, the level spawns in with significantly less power bricks. They still chain react a little bit, but that's not a problem. Close the game and jump back into the editor. Next, we're going to add an event that will trigger the game to restart if a brick object moves down far enough to collide with the death wall. So in the death wall object, click the add event button and add a new collision event with the brick object. From the control tab, drag an execute code action into the actions list. And when the code editor appears, let's add the following lines of code. Just like with the ball and death wall collision, we use the same code to set the alarm that will end the game. So with that done, close the code editor, close the death wall object and test the game. Because the bricks don't really move that fast, it would take ages for them to hit the death wall, so I've sped the footage up of the gameplay by 2000%. After the collision happens, there's a 1-second delay and then the game resets. Very cool. Next, let's create the scoring system. We need to begin with a sprite. So press the create sprite button and give it the name SPR_font numbers. Click the load sprite button and import all of the number sprites 0 through to 9. Holding the shift button while you click the first and last images will select all the ones in between. Click the center button to center the sprites, then click OK and close the sprite. Open the controller object and select the create event. Then open the execute code action. Here's where we're going to add the code that will set up the font ready for us to use in the game. Before we get started, let's call the randomize function at the top of the script. This is going to randomize our game so every time the level is different. Global.score is the variable that's going to hold our game's score value. We want the score to be 0 at the start of the game, so we set it to 0 here. We're creating a font to use with the font add sprite function. We just need to tell the function to use our font numbers sprite and that the images begin at 0. The last two parameters, true and 0, are to do with the spacing of the letters. That's not too important at the moment, but you can read up on it more in the document. To actually have the score display in the game, it needs to be drawn. Open up the controller object and click the add event button, then choose the draw event. Open up the controller object and click the add event button. From the draw category, select the draw event. Drag in an execute code action from the actions list, and let's type some code. Just like we set the draw font, we also need to set a draw color. After the draw color has been set, we tell GameMaker to draw our font. The arguments we supply for the function tell the font to be drawn at 50 pixels from both the left and bottom of the room. Then we cast the score variable to a string so the function can draw it as text. Lastly, we need to set the draw color back to white so that we don't accidentally turn anything else blue. To actually add points to the score variable, we need to add a line of code to the destroy event of the brick object. So open up the brick object, select the destroy event, and open the execute code action to add the following line of code. This line adds a random integer value between 108 and 115 to the score variable when the brick's broken. Close the code editor and hit the test button so we can take a look at our scoring. Because we added the randomize function in our controller object, the level now looks different every time we play, and each time a brick breaks, our score goes up. The last thing we're going to add to the game before we add sound effects is a trail or a tail behind the ball. So click the button to create a new sprite and give it the name SPR_tail. In the sprite properties window, click the edit sprite button, then go to the file menu and choose new. In the window that pops up, set the width and height to 10, then click OK. Click edit in the edit menu to open the image editor window. Then select the bucket fill tool and choose a dark purple color to fill the whole image purple. You can now close the image editor windows, then center the sprite and close it too. Create a new object and give it the name obj_tail, but don't give it a sprite. Click the Add Event button and choose a Create Event. From the Main 2 tab, drag a Set Alarm action into the event. Set the number of steps to 1 and the alarm number to alarm 0. Press OK and click the Add Event button again. This time we're adding an alarm 0 event from the Alarm section. From the Control tab, drag in an Execute Code action and let's get typing. Each time the alarm event is triggered, we decrease the scale or size of our tail to 90%. We then check the scale, and because our image is a square, we only have to check one side. Then if it's really small, probably not even big enough to see anymore, we destroy it and reset the alarm so it'll do the scale and size check again next time. But hang on, we didn't give our tail object a sprite, so there's no image to scale and no image to check. Close the code editor and let's fix that up. Click the Add Event button and add a Draw event. Then drag in an Execute Code action and we're going to type a nice long line of code. Instead of assigning the tail sprite to the tail object, we're getting the tail object to draw the sprite. This doesn't let the object have a collider and stops the tail from bumping into things and interrupting the game. To call the function, we're telling it to draw the tail sprite with image number 0 at the X and Y position of the tail object using the image scale variables that we're controlling in the alarm function. We're also giving the sprite the same direction as the object. We're setting the draw color to white and drawing it fully opaque. Close the code editor, close the tail object, and open the ball object. Select the Create event and open its Execute Code action. We need to add a line of code. To actually have our tail in the game, we're going to set an alarm, and in that alarm event, we'll create a tail object and reset the alarm. Now close the code editor and use the Add Event button to add a new event for the alarm 0. Then drag in an Execute Code action and get ready to type the last bit of code for this tutorial. Here we're going to create a tail object at the ball's position every time the alarm event is called. Close the code editor lastly, and let's reset the alarm so it's called again in the future. With that done, you can now close the code editor, close the ball object, and test your game to see your awesome tail in action. Haha, if you ask me, that's got to be one of the coolest parts of the game. What a great way to wrap up Part 10 of making Breaky blocks in GameMaker. In Part 11, the final tutorial, we're adding sound effects to the game to finish it right off. Stay tuned, I'll see you then. Close the code editor and the tail object, then open the ball object.